Hey, welcome back to the shop. So this is where we're picking up with our chair. So we've got our basic shape, but we're still missing our back slats. So we do have our mortises, and so that kind of gives us enough information, along with it being in its final posture, to help us measure how long those back slats need to be. This is what we're going to be aiming for in today's episode. Basically, we're going to start with some 4/4 stock. I'm going to resaw it at the table saw, which is just my preferred method. My bandsaw is not that nice, so the table saw gives me better results, and ultimately probably less waste because I don't have to plane away as much at the end. And here I've got some nice quarter sawn walnut. It's not what I planned for, but I had it on hand. The grain runs straight throughout, and then in this dimension it's quarter sawn. I'll give you a close up of that in a moment. But we're going to resaw this down and then cut it into its profile after we've got the widths that we need. And then we'll ultimately take it over on a bending form and steam bend it into its final shape. Before we can steam bend it, we want to get it in its final dimensions and such. And that's a little bit complicated because one, we've got tapers, and this is kind of going to make the tenons a little bit interesting to deal with. But secondly, this chair, because of the bend, these back slats get wider apart as you go up the ladder rungs of the chair. So right here, it's not quite as wide, and it'll keep getting wider as we go up. So each of these has to be uniquely fitted to its mortises. And I'll show you how I measure that when we get to that step. So the first thing, we're gonna go over to the table saw and resaw this down into 1/4 inch strips. And here's that quarter sawn walnut that I was talking about. So you can see the grain runs continuously. I don't have any run out on the sides. If you look at the sides, I've got this grain that runs straight throughout. And so we shouldn't have any problem bending this part here. It runs out that way, but that's not a problem because it's quarter sawn in the right direction. So here you can see the end grain, how it's all pretty much vertical all the way throughout. So that'll be nice for bending. And here I've got some burn marks. I'm just going to plane away. There we go, nice and shiny and clear. I didn't think I had a good way of showing you this on the real chair, so I figured I would draw a picture. And basically what I have here is my 2 back legs, represented by these rectangles here, and then this curve represents the ultimate curve that we're going to need to get out of these pieces once they're steam bent. And this is pretty hard to measure. It's really hard to measure the arc length of something at a certain radius. I don't really know how to do that, but what I do have here is my backrests are in a static position, they're not moving. And so I know the distance between them. And so what I can do is take a tape measure or a ruler. Here, let's say we ended up getting 12 inches on this linear part. Then I can take my bending form, which has the curve that I want, and lay out, find the center point, put it on the midpoint of my curve, and then find those 2 start and stop points. Right here at 0, and right here at 12. And then what I can do is take a story stick, something thin and disposable, and wrap it around there. And then I can transpose, basically I've got the linear length right here, as we mentioned, and I just want to match up on my story stick where those intersections are, and use this to determine my ultimate arc length that I need for the backrest posts, and that should give me an accurate dimension. And the one other thing that I'll mention is that we don't just need this distance between these two posts, but I actually have those mortises that are 1/4 of an inch deep, roughly, maybe a little deeper, since I chopped them by hand. And so we'll just need to add a 1/2 of an inch to that length. And then what we can do is take that arc length and base our final piece on the arc length and not on the linear length. And then bend those after we've shaped them. And then I want to bend them after I've shaped them so that I don't have to work with a curved piece. So I'm gonna do all of that shaping right now. And then we'll steam bend it, get it into its final shape, and hopefully everything matches. We can still tinker with the fit if we need to, but I would rather avoid it. So that's what we're gonna do next, is try to figure out that distance between and use the method I just described. Okay, just taking a simple tape measure, I'm just going to find the distance between the lowest set of mortises. So this is just under 12 1/4. And then I'll just add 1/2 of an inch. So 12.75 is really what we're kind of looking at for the ultimate depth. And so I just need to write that down, 12.75. So I don't have to remember it. I've got that on my disposable story stick here. And so what we're gonna do is take a longer ruler that can stay straight. So what I want to do is find my 12.75 and take the midpoint of that, which is 6 3/8, I think. So I'll find my 6 3/8 and put that on the midpoint line, and then I want to find 0 on this side and 12.75 on the other side. Let's see. And then I'll just make myself a pencil mark for about where that's at. And I'll draw a reference line so that I can reuse it later if I need to. So 12.75, I like to write it on there so that I can reuse it. And then from there, I can take my story stick and line it up on that mark, wrap it around. And so this side needs to be lined up with the line that we just drew. And then find it on the other side, and we can let go of that side once we have it, and just mark with a pencil how long we actually need that to be. So this mark represents my lowest rung. I'll go ahead and label that low. That one. Okay, so from here, what I need is the measurement from this side to this side, and that will be my arc length. And we can make our final length based on that, do our tapers, and then steam bend it. So let me mark this. Now I'll take this center finding ruler. You don't need this, but this is kind of nice to find the midpoint of a board. So it's about my midpoint. And then I'll make a mark for my tenons. And then from here, I will want to find the midpoint of this board. So I'll do 6 1/4. Okay, so you can see I've got my midpoint marked out with pencil, and then on each side I have my tenon range, so I need that to be preserved at the end. And the same thing on this side. And next up, I have this tenon taper template, which is very, very simple. But basically all I'm going to do is take my, I want to mark out a 1/2 inch on my tenons that I'll keep at a solid 1 inch. Then I'll take my taper template and line it up with the innermost part of that tenon and trace out to the midpoint. So here's my final taper. You can see I've got these lines that I'll bandsaw down to, and then we'll finish it off with a spoke shave. And that one will be ready for steam bending. And here's my bandsawn back slat. It's a little bit rough, but basically I'm just going to take this down with a spoke shave, and I'm going to work on curving these over a little bit, just getting a little bit of a round over. And then you see I've got my tenons that have gone that 1/2 inch in, maintaining the 1 inch width. And we can always refine that later if it doesn't fit quite right. But basically I'm just going to work on smoothing this out with the spoke shave. If I work from the middle here, because the grain is straight, this is always downhill. And I just never want to go up toward the middle. I always want to go from the middle down. And once I see that it's all been shaved, I'm going to quit, and then I'll start doing round over. I think that's good enough for me, so I'll go around it a little bit. I'll do the same on this side. Halfway done, and I think that point at the top is a little bit dramatic for me, so I'm probably going to smooth that out real quick. And that looks about done. And here's my final piece ready to go into a steam box. So I've got the one done, and then I've got this one that's not been sized correctly, so I'm gonna need to go back and make this one fit the chair that we're working on. And then I need to do one more, and then after that we'll go to the steam box and steam bend these up. One thing I did forget to do with this guy is make sure that the tenons at the end are actually the correct thickness to match these mortises, and it is far too thick. It will not fit in those holes. So I do want to plane this down before I proceed any further, and I'm just going to plane this with a hand plane until it's the right thickness. By planing this, I'm losing the roundovers that I just worked on, so I'm going to need to go back and add those roundovers. Put the tenons into each side, and we're at the right thickness, so those are all compatible. Okay, now I've got all three of my back slats done, so I've got the bottom, the middle, and the top, and can't really get them in place, but you can kind of get a vision for what this is going to look like in the end, and we'll see if they fit after we've got the bend going. So that's what's next. I'm going to fire up the steam box, and we'll get these ready to bend.